Hey folks, Lianne Bridges here, and my work involves helping people reach their greater potential through their work and their life. And I have a really important message I want to pass on today, and it's something that I haven't been as direct in the past, but have been living it myself over the last year. And it's really about our own health sovereignty. It's time that we really look at what it means to be sovereign in our own health and wellness. And that means in our awareness, our self-awareness, how we impact the words, the thoughts, the patterns, and how it affects us, our health, um, our our way of being, how it attracts abundance in our life, and how it affects others, as well as our own physical well-being and what we do to our body to ensure greater and greater health. And so what does the kind of the idea of self-responsibility mean? It's or sovereignty around health. It means that we can look at the outside world for ideas and wisdom and training and so forth, but ultimately we have to be the ones that make the final decision for our mental and physical and emotional health. And over the last year, what we've seen is kind of an imbalance in that, where governments and different experts and so forth we've advocated to them what we think is right. So for example, I hear often women talking about their kids and how their especially teenage kids are doing very poorly because they haven't been able to connect with their friends and so forth. And so they've had rules that say you cannot do X, Y, and Z. You cannot, well, you know the whole rules. And they follow that. Okay, so that is advocating, sorry, the word, your sovereignty to somebody else. And you might say, yeah, but I'll get a fine. This is what the law is. I have to follow the law. But what point do we look at and we say, for me and my family, I know what's best. I know what's best for my child's mental health, and I'll find a way to ensure that that child gets the connection, the play, the things that they need for their mind, body, and spirit health. That is true sovereignty, making that decision with the understanding, yes, there is some risks of getting caught or, whatever it might be. So it's really recognizing that other people don't have necessarily a view of what's best for you. They may be trying. You might say, if you think positively about government, they may be trying to help everybody. But the thing is, they're working with masses of millions of people, and each individual has their own needs. So at what point do we say enough is enough? At what point do we say, I need to go outside. I need to go out with or without a mask. I need to vaccine or not vaccine. I need to be able to make a choice for myself. And this is one of the things that why I'm saying this message I think is really important is when you look back at what's happened over the year, many people warned about the broader perspective, and now we're seeing it. The broader perspective is that one little inch, people take a mile. So what was a 2-week lockdown became a year lockdown. What was wearing just a mask just to go in the store just for a little bit became wearing it everywhere. And now in my province, primary school kids are wearing 2 masks all day. And it became now even 2 masks and more masks. And now it's even after inoculation, we'll be wearing it. So what seems like, oh, just for this little bit, why wouldn't we do that, to seeing that it's taking that goalpost and it keeps moving it? And similarly with travel, you will just stop non-essential travel for 2 or 3 weeks, then became months and months. And then if you do travel, you have to go through being in these quarantine facilities, because you can quarantine at home. Okay, we can do that. No, now you have to quarantine in these facilities, or in some countries they're even putting kind of bracelets on you. And if you move out of your house, they'll catch you. So do you see what happens is we give an inch and it gets taken a mile, and this continues to happen. And we may say, well, that's a conspiracy theory, but it's not necessarily many people organizing in the background. You can believe that. It could be just a natural progression of what happens as we still stay in this fear and still stay in the panic and don't recognize that it's our own sovereignty to breathe fresh air, to not take, to eat good, healthy food that are not ruined by GMO and all sorts of pesticides, to drink water that doesn't have fluoride in it, that doesn't have chlorine, that doesn't have all of this crap in it, that we eat a great mixture of food, that we, exercise, that we connect with each other. And these are the things that I've continued to do over the last year and felt amazing. I've actually had a wonderful year, one of the best years ever. And so many people will say, how is that possible? It's because I've constantly gone back, looked out to see what's going on outside of me and say, okay, what do I need? What does my family need? My loved ones need? And not at the expense of others, because I really don't believe it is. I think each one of us has that responsibility. So I come now to a really important point is in our process here over the last year, is we're at the point where we may be mandated to have health passports or whatever we want to call them in order to travel, in order to do business, in order to go into restaurants, to go into gyms and so forth. And a lot of people think this is a really good idea. So I just want to bring awareness again to say, think about this from a broader perspective. This may seem like for this one virus that it's a good idea, but what we may not be seeing is just like all the other measures, it's putting in place something that's going to have a long-term impact. Do you think, for example, that maybe in 2 or 3 years, when we've had these shots, these inoculations against COVID, that eventually it'll just disappear and the passports will disappear? The likelihood is more and more inoculations will go on to that passport. The MMR one, anyone, typhoid, you name it, will be on that. Then what's to stop new experimental drugs to be put on that? At that point, when we allow somebody to put something mandatory over our face, but worse, into our body, we are giving up our own sovereignty of our health and what we agree of how we want to run our body. So think about that. Do we say yes at this point to these passports and allow the government, the so-called specialists, who really are still flying by the seat of their pants? Look at in my own province where there's still curfew. They said they'd have curfew for a month. Now we're into month 3. And there's no scientific proof. They've never been able to give any scientific proof that it helps in any way, shape, or form curb the spread of the virus. So what's to say that this is not going to continue with these passports? And again, we look at how things in the past have rolled out. Follow the money. We think about there's a huge incentive for pharmaceutical companies to make sure and to lobby that each one of their medications, whatever you want to call them, are on these passports going in the future. These pharmaceutical companies have made tens of billions of dollars in 1 year and received all sorts of bailout money and grant money and stuff like that from governments. So when we follow the money, we recognize that there's a lot of money to be had and a lot of power to be had by moving these things forward. Is it a concerted effort in the background? I don't know. But we do know that governments and industries have been corrupted in the past. Just look at one example. In my own province, not that far, is the Charbonneau inquiry went and looked at all the construction and building that was done by for public purposes like roads and bridges and stuff like that. And that was back, I think, in the 90s or early 2000, where they looked at the amount of corruption. And at every level of government, every single level of government, there was intense corruption. Well, we knew that living in Quebec when I was a kid. It was something that was just accepted. But it took people standing up to finally say, no, we're not going to take this anymore. Look at another example. I just watched the movie, what's it called? The Mortician. I can't remember the name of of it. It was about a guy who was arrested and put into Guantanamo Bay, Gitmo. And it's a story of how he was there tortured. I mean, just horrific, horrific. Never had, for the first 6 years, didn't have even access to a lawyer. And then through that, his story did come out that he was never charged after 14 years of being in there, never charged with one offense. So his rights were completely stripped. Well, how did that happen? It was a time when the government in the United States told people that these people are dangerous. We're doing the same thing. People who don't get the jab are dangerous. People who don't wear masks are dangerous. And so when we start to say people are dangerous, we can do things to them, discount them. And so this is what we did, or they did. They said, okay, we're going to put them on this island away from our Constitution, which says everyone has a right to a trial and fair process. No, we're because these guys are dangerous. These ones, all the rest of you get the fair treatment, but these guys don't. And that's when we start to create a breakaway from what we fought for, our sovereignty, our freedoms, our constitutional rights, or whatever we call in our different countries. So as we look at the last year, we see the infringement. And you might say, but it's all been for good because it's helping us reduce the spread and reduce the deaths and reduce the illness. And, many people can debate all these different things. But even if you believe that, recognize that this is not going to end here. There's new variants. And then as these new variants come, then there's going to be a new virus and a new bacteria and a new threat of some sort. And then we have to continue to follow what outside people say is best for us. And over time, we erode what our own guidance system is, which knows that healthy food, movement, good clean air, breathing on a regular basis, not masked up for 8 hours a day as our children are, and clean, fresh water, and connecting with other humans and hugging and loving and being in their presence, not just on a screen. These things are vital for human dignity, for human health and wellness and longevity. And as we allow our governments and specialists and experts, so-called, to continue to erode this, I believe, are going down a potential road that is not in the best interest of our own health sovereignty. So once again, just think about from that broader perspective. Do you think, and as you imagine getting, going down the road of getting an inoculation, and then, yes, that way allows me to travel, allows me to get a green passport and so forth, that this is a good thing, that it's going to end in a year? I guarantee you this will not end unless we stand up and do something about it. Thank you for listening. Namaste.